Severance is a visually sterile show. Lumon's stark white hallways and Kier's bleak winter landscapes make up the majority of the scenery within the setting. Some of the only light we see is bright fluorescent lights and a weak winter sun. The food we see is often so visually neat and bland that it no longer looks like food, if there is even food at all. Plants are few and far between, and the ones that are present are often dying, dead, or fake. Moments that look like the real world, our world, are so jarringly, obviously different from the rest of the show that they create a visual dissonance. This is, of course, on purpose. The show is intentionally visually sterile because it not only serves to demonstrate the bleakness of the world within, but also to highlight its main setting, Lumon Industries' obsession with purity. Purity as a concept is theorized by anthropologist and cultural theorist Mary Douglas in her 1966 book, Purity and Danger, to be matter in its place. According to Douglas, purity exists culturally when one separates themselves from impurities or matter out of place. With just a glance at Lumon Industries, one understands immediately that there is no matter out of place here. Everything is perfectly clean, solid, white, and pure. But there is a sinisterness to this supposed purity. This, too, is intentional. Lumon's obsession with purity and sterility serves as a vessel for the creators of the show to critique the inner workings of corporate life and its inherent biases. The values of Lumon, its religion, and its leaders reflect the values of corporate life in the 1% in our world, and therefore serve to demonstrate how these beliefs are harmful through a satirical lens. Lumon's unnamed company religion, heretofore referred to as the Kier Cult, is a religion created around the teachings and practices of Lumon's founder and first CEO, Kier Egan. In his life, Kier Egan wrote 3 main appendices of his employee handbook, which became the basis for his religion. Though there are other teachings dictated by Kier, such as his handbook passages and the 9 core values, there is nothing emphasized as much as the taming of the 4 tempers. The first time we learn of the 4 tempers, it is from a recording from Kier Egan himself, near his death.
In my life, I have identified 4 components, which I call tempers, from which are derived every human soul. Woe, frolic, dread, malice. Each man's character is defined by the precise ratio that resides in him. I walked into the cave of my own mind, and there I tamed them. Should you tame the tempers as I did mine, then the world shall become but your appendage. It is this great and consecrated power that I hope to pass on to all of you, my children.
These emotions, as defined by Kier, must be tamed and kept at bay. The tempers are not just abstract philosophical concepts in the eyes of the religion, they are given a depiction in the mythology of the Kier Cult. Woe is depicted as a gaunt bride, frolic as a jester or harlequin, dread is an old crone or hag, and malice is a goat-headed man. They are spirits or apparitions that appear to people, much in the same way that demons or ghosts do. The use of this imagery may feel familiar to many Western viewers. These archetypes, these inhuman and twisted visages, are associated with evil and the grotesque. Images of cartoon witches and depictions of the devil or vampires may spring to mind for some. In alternate depictions, they look deathly or even undead. Returning once more to Mary Douglas, we can see why. Evil is often depicted as formless or deathly. We cannot see or touch evil, but it is ever present and seeks to pollute us. It acts upon us in order to influence our actions and infiltrate and destroy pure society. Conversely, there is a figure that serves as a narrative foil for these tempers. Kier Egan, in this painting, is depicted as a shining figure on the opposite side, whipping the tempers into submission as they cower in fear. This aligns with the common idea of ethical dualism in religious depiction. In the book, The Invention of Satanism by Asbjørn Dyrendal, James R. Lewis, and Jesper A. Peterson, they discuss the idea of the devil in its current cultural form. The devil is the prince of evil, lord over all that seeks to destroy humanity. Their domain is disease and filth and rats and maggots. But there is also evil's enemy. When evil is personified, so is good, which means that when there is one prince of darkness, there tends to be one enemy of evil, representing light and good. It becomes clear then the four tempers are meant to represent the ultimate evil, and Kier is meant to represent the ultimate good. The tempers seek to infiltrate good society and cause evil, and the only way to ensure purity is to tame them by following Kier's teachings. All that is required to be pure, to be like Kier, is to separate oneself from their emotions. Throughout human history, humans have attempted in multiple ways to get rid of polluting forces and become pure in this way. Monks and nuns of multiple faiths take vows of celibacy and live lives of asceticism in pursuit of higher truths. Modern evangelical Christians avoid polluting media or forces they deem satanic. Sometimes, this asceticism is so extreme so as to remove things like color, much in the way that Carthusian monks did. However, it should be clear to many that this sort of extremism does not always work. Temptation, whether physical or spiritual, does exist. Extreme lifestyle changes and asceticism can sometimes cause desires to intensify, as anyone who's ever gone on a rigorous diet can attest to. For every devout monk, there were likely many others who failed. This is, of course, human nature. It is impossible to be perfect at all times, especially when it comes to things so fundamental to your consciousness, such as your emotions. It is just the way things are. However, when cultural expectations require one to be constantly in pursuit of perfection, lest they fall prey to evil, solutions to this predicament must be sought out in some way. Kier Egan, in the Season 2 episode Woe's Hollow, demonstrates an early iteration of his solution. According to this episode, on his deathbed, Kier dictated a fourth appendix of his handbook. In this fourth appendix, he tells the story of his twin, who he had never mentioned before, Theodore Egan. As the story goes, Theodore, outside of their shared tent, masturbated in the woods where Kier could hear, spilt his lineage upon the soil, and returned to the tent later to sleep, unashamed of his actions. Kier, the next morning, said that they should leave the forest to go back to their home, to which Theodore pled him to reconsider. When Kier did not, Theodore, in anguish, turned into a tree, and the spirit Woe appeared to Kier for the first time.
She spoke to me directly from her eyes and said, "This is your doing. You suffered his wantonness. Now he's no one's brother, only chaos's whore."
Kier, in all likelihood, never had a twin, and he certainly never had a twin who turned into a tree. Theodore was very likely never real. Instead, Theodore was probably a way for Kier to hide his own shame. The fact that this supposed Theodore was only ever mentioned on Kier's deathbed is indicative of Kier's shame surrounding the incident. Kier himself probably masturbated and felt shame for it, and thus invented a fictional twin to bear his shame and be erased so that he may never worry about his own impurities. Lumon never let go of this idea. In fact, one could call the creation and subsequent destruction of Theodore an early form of severance. Severance, as we can see multiple times throughout the show, is not merely a method employed to better control workers. It is a means to tame the tempers in a much more permanent way. Lumon, being the pioneers of severance, makes sense. They are obsessed with taming the tempers. Unpleasantry, grief, fear, all of these can cause an imbalance of the tempers. Work is unpleasant and draining. Grief is all-consuming and devastating. Daily chores are pointless and monotonous at best, and fear-inducing at worst. One's tempers are constantly at threat of becoming imbalanced. Would it not be nice to put everything that threatens to disturb the purity of your soul upon a disposable version of yourself that you can turn off and forget about when you don't need them anymore? Severance is Lumon's way to ensure purity. The whole world will never have to experience evil again. They'll all be Kier's children. Of course, though, this isn't true. not even within the framework of the show. Barring the fact that the severance procedure has flaws that Lumon's board never acknowledges, or the fact that there is no one true way to fully avoid emotions or negative experiences, there are still characters who, even if the above were true, would never experience this ultimate good that the Kier Cult promises. The process of monstrification and accusations of evil practices are not isolated events. Throughout history, those who are most vulnerable to accusations of inhumanity or great evil are groups which are already vulnerable or undesirable within society. Women in their fragile sexualities were witches who were more easily seduced by the devil. Disabled or mentally ill people were curses or monstrous births or possessed people caused by demonic influence. Indigenous people were savage monsters who sought to prey upon and enslave white women and children. Queer people are demonic entities who pervert the nature of Christ. All of these accusations are based upon pre-existing biases, which have twisted the judgment of the accusers and caused them to let their prejudice take hold. The Kier Cult is no stranger to these biases. As a belief system founded by a white man from the 19th century, his teachings and beliefs are informed by the time. Similarly, his progeny and their followers carry these same biases. They are almost all white, wealthy, and privileged in ways that most people in the setting will never be, and their beliefs reflect this. Many characters within the show are affected by this. One of the first, and perhaps most obvious examples, are the innies. The innies, or inside versions of the severed characters, only exist on the severed floor. In Lumon's eyes, they are not people.
I am a person. You are not.
They are not autonomous individuals with their own thoughts and feelings and agency. They are tools. They are a means to an end. To Lumon, they are merely vessels to help outies tame their tempers, and workers which help them reach a bottom line. If they act out, if they are out of line, if they want to leave, they are punished. It is not hard for many to see themselves in the innies. After all, we at work must often follow a strict set of rules that don't always make sense. We are also seen as cogs in a machine by our superiors, not people. We are also trapped, because if we do not participate in the system, many of us will not be able to even survive. This goes infinitely more so for anyone who falls outside the box of rich white man. Another character who is affected by Lumon's inherent biases is Mr. Milchick. Initially introduced as a manager and one of the innies' bosses, Milchick is an antagonistic force in Season 1. However, in Season 2, as we start to see him advance through Lumon's ranks, the show begins to portray him in a more sympathetic light as his blackness becomes the focus of his character. Time and again, Milchick's behavior is nitpicked and scrutinized by his higher-ups. Things as inconsequential as his use of big words or his arrangement of paper clips. He is constantly considered to be out of line, uncontrolled, and sloppy, despite being one of the most calm and collected characters on the show. His tempers, in the eyes of Lumon's board, are constantly out of balance. The extraordinarily high standards Milchick must adhere to are due to his blackness. He is a black man, and therefore, like many other black people attempting to enter predominantly white spaces, he is considered out of place. He is held to higher standards because no matter what Milchick does, no matter how many absolutions he attempts, at the end of the day, he will never be considered pure in the eyes of the Kier Cult, because to them, he will always be matter out of place. The way the Kier Cult operates reflects the values of the real-life corporate world. Much of the corporations we see today are these predominantly white, cis-het, male, able-bodied spaces, run by those much more wealthy than we could ever dream to achieve. Severance reflects this very well by turning these inherent biases of corporate culture into a dogmatic religion. The creator's use of visual imagery and satirical portrayals of real-world issues shows the flaws and disparities of our current capitalist system as they exist in the corporate world. There is so much more to talk about in regards to Severance's visual symbolism and its commentary on society. I didn't even touch on its themes of pregnancy and motherhood, worker abuse, autonomy, or even the further nuances of Milchick's character arc in Season 2. However, I'd like to leave you with a link to a video essay by creator Afrodhizja on Mr. Milchick and existing in the corporate world as a black person. I'd also like to encourage you to check out the companion podcast hosted by Ben Stiller and Adam Scott, which gives a more in-depth analysis of the behind-the-scenes processes of the show. Thank you so much for watching.